A huge welcome and good evening to every one of you to the Blavatnik School of Government here at the University of Oxford. I'm Nairi Woods, and I'm the founding dean of the school. And it's a particular pleasure to have you here tonight to launch this very exciting new collaboration. And just before we get to that, what are we as a school? We're an unusual department of a university. We're a school with a mission, and that mission is to improve public leadership. And the way we come at that is by doing three things. And the first is to attract some of the most resilient, brilliant, purposeful people and have them become public leaders. Whole bunch over there. Hands up for the MPP. And likewise, to nurture and nourish and support people who are already senior leaders in government. Our second bet is to support the kind of research that actually helps people who are trying to govern do better, to step in and do research which helps. You're going to see the link to tonight's institute. And the third is to use this glorious space, not just this school, but the University of Oxford, which has come through 900 years of civil wars, religious wars, of conflict, of history, and serves as a wonderful convening place far away from the madding crowds for people to come together and realize they can actually work together, even though they sometimes think they hate each other. And that's the bet that the school is making. So it's incredibly exciting for us tonight to be launching the Institute, the Oxford Institute for Technology and Justice, about which you're going to hear a whole lot more. Because this is an institute that starts with brilliant people, including these people on the stage, that takes forward fantastic research, data collection, lessons, technology on how to improve people's lives, and then partners with people in country, on the ground, with the Clooney Foundation, to actually make sure that all that work makes a real difference to people's lives and lifts people up. So enough from me. Now you're going to hear about the real stars of tonight, and it begins with Amal Clooney. Amal Clooney, her main title, and the thing for which all of you know her, is as Professor of Practice in International Law at the Blavatnik School of Government, and we're very proud to have you here, Amal. And because you all already know that about her, you know that her academic writings and research include no fewer than 3 seminal international law textbooks. I was going to say hands up who's read all of them, but I won't do that. Her book, The Right to Fair Trial in International Law, is a prize-winning book lauded by the community of academic international lawyers. But she's also a woman of action who co-founded the Clooney Foundation, and as a leading human rights lawyer has been a tireless advocate of victims of genocide, whether in Darfur, whether in Armenia, the ISIS victims whose case she's currently working on, and political prisoners and wrongly detained journalists, whether it's Myanmar, Egypt, Azerbaijan, and beyond. So let me have this woman of academic brilliance and creative action introduce the Institute to you all this evening. Amal.
Thank you so much, Nairi, and thanks to everyone who's here tonight on a day that does feel like a celebration. I will say my husband is here, and he's read the dedication in the book. He likes to say introduction, but it's actually the dedication, and it's to him, so one would hope, but it's quite thick. Thrilled to be here with all of you. AI is moving, as we all know, very fast. and justice cannot afford to stand still. That sounds like a really basic proposition, but when just over a year ago, Professor Philippa Webb and I started to survey global initiatives that were using AI for good, we found some examples in the field of medicine, in the field of climate, but really nothing similar when it came to justice. So this conversation started under a tree, and we wondered what could be done in this sector using the power and the promise of AI. Now, it's the fact that there's nothing dedicated to justice so far at a global scale is obviously not because of a lack of need. We have wars raging in 3 continents with crimes against humanity going unpunished, new cyber crimes being perpetrated across the globe with impunity. Millions of girls are victims of violence and become child brides and unable to complete their education. And journalists are being killed and imprisoned at the highest rates we've seen in decades. Yet experts have found that 2/3 of the world's population cannot access the justice system in their country. And the inability to access a lawyer is a key driver for this justice gap. But what if AI could change that? I am, as Nairi said, a professor of practice in international law here at Oxford and co-founder of the Clooney Foundation for Justice, a charity that runs a legal aid program for women and journalists around the world. We monitor criminal trials of journalists to expose and challenge attempts to silence the press. And we represent women in court for free when they are victims of violence, child marriage, or discrimination. In the last 5 years, we've provided pro bono support in over 40 countries. Our work has helped to free over 100 journalists and advocates. And we've helped thousands of women defend their legal rights in court. This year, our work has helped to secure a 24-year sentence in a case involving a 14-year-old girl who was raped in police custody in Malawi, not a situation where you normally see accountability. We've helped girls escape child marriages. We've secured compensation for women prosecuted for miscarriages. We've supported a campaign to strengthen Kenya's laws against female genital mutilation. And we've represented victims in the only international trials against Sudanese and Congolese warlords for the rape and murder of women and girls in those countries. We're enormously proud of our track record, but we are just one charity, and the issues we tackle are largely ignored, avoided, and underfunded. So if this work is to be truly transformative, we have to be able to scale. That's why it's so exciting to be launching the Oxford Institute of Technology and Justice today, a partnership between Oxford University and the Clooney Foundation for Justice, dedicated to harnessing the power of AI for justice. I know many of you are thinking, what about all the harms that AI can cause? Are these people just naive about that? Have they forgotten it? Obviously not. We are aware of the potential harms of AI, and actually a significant portion of our work at the Institute does focus on these harms in the justice sector. So one of our core projects is actually tracking the use and regulation of AI in courtrooms around the world to ensure that fake evidence and robot judges are not going to be allowed to undermine the rule of law. The technology is moving much faster than the law. So the first pillar of our work is dedicated to the advancement of international law to regulate the use of AI in our courts. And we'll show you where things stand on our AI Justice Atlas that will be unveiled later tonight. We're also partnering with legislators, tech experts, and prosecutors to enhance accountability for cybercrimes that harm our schools, airports, hospitals, and elections. So far, over 130 countries have suffered cyber disruptions, and the number of cyber crimes is growing exponentially through the use of AI. So the second pillar of our work focuses on promoting accountability for victims of unlawful cyber attacks. But we also believe in the power of AI to increase access to justice in a transformative way. So the third pillar of our work focuses on using AI for good, by developing digital agents that can link lawyers with those who need them the most. In partnership with top technologists, we have created AI-powered tools that connect disadvantaged women and journalists at risk to legal information in a conversational format around the clock, and to vetted pro bono lawyers who can help them defend their rights. We're excited to be able to show you some of these tools tonight. But first, I'd like to invite my brilliant colleague and co-founder of the Institute, Professor Philippa Webb, to tell you more.
Thank you, Amal, and good evening, everyone. I will first turn to our accountability pillar. The cyber threat landscape is escalating in scale, speed, and sophistication. Critical infrastructure is often the target: hospitals, energy grids, transport. Just last month, the plane of the President of the European Commission had its GPS jammed, and the pilot had to use hard copy maps. Cybercrime has increased exponentially. According to the Microsoft Digital Defense Report, customers face over 600 million cyber attacks a day. And AI is supercharging the power of cyber operations with tools such as ransomware for service, a cybercrime business model where developers sell code to other hackers. By 2031, ransomware will cost victims $261 billion annually and attack a device every 2 seconds. Cyber attacks have real-world consequences on our lives. In recent years, we've seen Costa Rica being forced to declare a state of emergency after ransomware attacks paralyzed essential services for months. A ransomware attack on the Irish healthcare system caused disruption again for months, delaying oncology services, and over 500 patients had their radiation therapy paused. Albania was forced to shut down its government websites after personal information on over 1,000 undercover police informants and 30,000 people was leaked. And Russian cyber activity against Ukraine surged 70% last year, targeting critical infrastructure in 4,000 incidents. Malicious cyber operations affect many, but they're coming from a relatively small number of states. According to the Council on Foreign Relations, 34 states are suspected of sponsoring cyber operations since 2005. And of these operations, 77% came from 4 states: China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. What you see on the slide is a 2024 heat map by the University of Oxford that also shows that certain countries are cybercrime hotspots, with Russia the country which has the most cybercrime emanating from it. Of course, what is not visible to many of us and on this map is the extent of cyber espionage and influence operations by many states, which may also have harmful effects. Our work at the Institute will focus on increasing accountability for such unlawful operations. And you all found a gift on your seat this evening. We've just published our first policy brief. This examines legal accountability options for states that are victims of such attacks, including litigation before international courts, arbitration, fact-finding, and mediation. And I thank Harriet Moynihan, who led the work on this brief. We know that states may be reluctant to consent to a third party adjudicating in an area in which they wish to maintain operational freedom. So we take a realistic, incremental approach. And where perpetrators can be identified, we look at the legal pathways to prosecuting them in domestic courts under cybercrime laws. Our next project is how to improve the use of AI and digital evidence in accountability processes. Various types of digital evidence, including satellite imagery, social media content, and 3D reconstruction, can help make a powerful case. An example is the evidence in relation to the Mariupol theatre attack. A number of civil society organizations have analyzed this war crime. And this slide shows the work of Forensic Architecture, Amnesty International, and Bellingcat. We've all seen the grainy iPhone footage capturing potential crimes, and this is first-hand, real-time information, but it can lack the specificity, chain of custody, or authentication to be admissible in proceedings. AI tools can help with pattern recognition, cross-referencing, and anomaly detection. And this all strengthens the ability to deploy such evidence in court. I now turn to our advancement pillar. Building on the work of Amal and I, 1,000 pages in the Right to a Fair Trial, our mission is to bring that right into the digital age. I don't know if I'm announcing a new book. Our flagship project is the AI Justice Atlas. It shows how AI is actually being used in criminal proceedings around the world, country by country. You see it in action here. This is on our website. You can find it at techandjustice.org. It will redirect you to the BSG site. And we go beyond desktop research. This is research based on discussions with judges, defense counsel, police, and parties. They are sharing their experiences directly with us. This project is led by Lodovica Reparelli, Daisy Peterson, Kat Lewis, and Nadine Reiner. And thanks to the pro bono work of law firms and experts, we're able to capture and vet grounded insights from every jurisdiction. And we thank Quinn Emanuel, Urquhart and Sullivan, Freshfields, Gibson Dunn, Paxoy, Sarainen, Weber Wenzel, as well as Mr. Al-Alsaba, Mr. Kapoor, and Mr. Mwafulua. And what we found is striking. Argentina's officials are working with an AI that drafts rulings and predicts case outcomes with 96% accuracy in under 20 seconds. It has slashed trial times from 167 days to 38. In China, AI has been in the courtroom since 2006. The Supreme People's Court has declared that every court will be using AI tools to support judicial functions by the end of this year. And by 2030, AI will be fully embedded in the Chinese judicial process, including automated judgment drafting and smart courts where AI helps parties directly. In the UAE, prosecutors are bringing justice into the metaverse using virtual reality crime scene reconstructions. In a US court, a murder victim spoke from beyond the grave through an AI avatar with his face and voice. And in the UK, AI is being used as part of risk scoring systems that help determine bail and parole decisions. I'm not saying that all of these are positive developments. The Atlas is just providing visibility in a landscape that is changing fast, because policymakers, lawyers, and citizens need to see in one place what's happening, where, and why it matters. And we're just getting started. Today, the Atlas covers 15 jurisdictions. Tomorrow, we will start to add 27 more. Our aim is for it to be the go-to global reference for AI in justice. And as a next step, we will draw on the Atlas to develop policy and legal guidance on how AI and the right to a fair trial can work together, whether and how international standards need to be updated, and how they can be implemented in courtrooms around the world. The Atlas is our foundation, but we're launching 3 other projects with global partners to turn insights into action. With UNESCO, Said Business School, and the law faculty, we're creating an open online course on AI and the judiciary. It will reach tens of thousands of judges in over 160 countries. Collaborating with HuriDocs, we're fixing a basic problem. Human rights jurisprudence is scattered across a dozen databases, some of it locked behind paywalls. Our global human rights repository will bring every decision by international human rights bodies into one open, searchable platform. This is the Library of Babel recoded, one global entry point, accessible to all and powered by AI. And finally, let me introduce the Fair Trial Advisor. The right to a fair trial is not one right, and nor is it a simple right. Amal and I disaggregated the right to a fair trial into 13 component parts. Those components have been interpreted by 25 international human rights bodies in over 28,000 decisions. But judges and counsel don't have hours to sift through 1,000 pages of commentary. They need clear, authoritative guidance instantly. And thanks to Oxford University Press, our books can be in a chatbot on your device. And thanks to Microsoft's AI for Good Lab and Office of Responsible AI, as well as our in-house technology specialist, Sarah Wahidi, the Fair Trial Advisor will use retrieval-augmented generation architecture so that each response is grounded in the pre-approved dataset, mitigating hallucinations and ensuring traceability. And it will be co-designed with the people who use it: judges, prosecutors, defendants, defense counsel, and civil society. At the Institute, we consider co-design to be a principle of legitimacy. And crucially, the Fair Trial Advisor will be built with ethical guardrails and independent ownership, and will be open access. This is not about replacing human judgment. It is about supporting it, liberating judicial time, and making international standards accessible and understandable to all. I want to close by thanking Amal for what Darren Walker rightly calls her noble and radical ideas and the energy and talent to put them into action. I thank Professor Nairi Woods, who supported our vision from the outset and brought me into a school where big ideas for a better world can become a reality on a regular basis. Students are listening. I thank our fantastic events, communications, and AV teams. And my deep gratitude goes to our Oxford Institute team, Ludovica, Harriet, Daisy, Sarah, Anna, Bogdana, Alejandro. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Philippa. I'm going to close by telling you about our work on access to justice. The Institute is really proud to be working with Microsoft's AI for Good lab, and you'll be hearing from Microsoft's president a bit later, to build 3 AI tools that we think will increase access to justice, and we are just getting started. 2 of our tools aim to help women and girls in Malawi, a country where using technology to advance justice is not just a nice idea. It's critical to meet the needs of the population. This is a country where 1 in 3 women experience physical or sexual violence in their lifetime. 4 in 10 marry when they're under 18, and almost 1 in 10 marry when they're under 15 years of age. Many of these young girls are forced to become child mothers, they suffer violence, and they drop out of school. Malawi's laws, on paper, protect girls, but the country has fewer than 800 lawyers to serve a population of 22 million. So just for context, the law firm where I started work in New York has more than 800 lawyers. And this is a country that's about 1/3 of the population of the UK. So it's been called a legal desert. And it means that millions of women don't know what their rights are, and they certainly cannot access a lawyer to help them. The Clooney Foundation has for years worked in Malawi to try and fill the gap. We've partnered with the Women Lawyers Association to hold legal aid clinics where women and first responders can get free legal advice. We've partnered with Melinda French Gates and Michelle Obama to get the word out in schools and across communities, including 18 child marriage hotspots that we identified. We've established private-public partnerships with the Prosecutor's Office and the Legal Aid Bureau to provide assistance to more women seeking help. And we've trained young lawyers to do more of this work as well. But the justice gap remains shockingly wide. Our clinics reach a few thousand people at a time. Our lawyers spend hours taking handwritten notes, and they can only reach many rural communities where some of these problems are particularly stark, about once a year. This scaling challenge has led us to develop the first of its kind AI-powered chatbot to connect women to free legal information and representation. Our tool helps women, as well as frontline first responders, access this legal data in real time. Not once a year, but whenever they want. We are co-creating the tool, as Philippa said, this is a really important principle for us at the Institute, with the people who will be using it. We've tested it so far with almost 200 first responders, almost all of whom said they would use it. Unlike commercially available large language models, our tool has a closed data set of verified information, validated by legal experts, including judges. And the lawyers that the tool recommends are vetted by humans beforehand. The tool is currently in English, but we will soon roll out the first ever chatbot in Chichewa. I actually called Brad and said, we need to do this in Chichewa. And he's like, until this phone call, I've never heard the word Chichewa before, but okay, let's do it. And this will be, again, the first such chatbot that exists. It's the most widely spoken language in the country, so we're going to be able to reach even more women once we roll that out. And we're also adding voice-to-text functionality to reach an even broader community. That's our first tool. Thank you. Defending women's rights also means helping their lawyers be more efficient, particularly when there's only 776 of them. So our second tool is an AI platform that accelerates the preparation of legal documents. For example, protection orders, sometimes called restraining orders in some systems, are among the most effective legal remedies for survivors of violence. But lawyers' capacity to obtain these orders is inherently limited. Drafting the form that goes to a judge takes hours. It relies on lengthy in-person meetings between lawyer and client. It requires specialized knowledge to understand complex legalese. As a result, many survivors cannot access protection orders quickly enough or at all. Our new AI tool changes that. Survivors can now recount their experience in their own words as part of a conversation, and the tool will generate a protection order request that is legally compliant. Although a lawyer still reviews it to ensure quality control, 9 out of 10 steps are now completed automatically. Tools like this can help to radically scale the support that can be provided to vulnerable populations, and we're really excited to be able to reach many more survivors this way. Finally, alongside tools that help women and girls, we are pioneering technology to increase access to justice for journalists who are at risk of imprisonment for their work. Journalists, as I think many people in this room will know, are being arrested at record rates under criminal defamation laws, fake news laws, terror laws. Baseless lawsuits are being filed against journalists by officials and oligarchs. Some people in this room have been victims of this. And these kinds of lawsuits, civil suits, also make speech prohibitively expensive. And governments are silencing critics even in democracies. My client, who I see here in the front row, Maria Ressa, is a Filipino journalist and Nobel laureate who is here, and she knows this all too well. And of course, it's not just in Asia that this is happening. In total, according to the VDEM Institute, 72% of the world's population, around 5.7 billion people, now live in an autocracy. The Clooney Foundation is the only charity monitoring criminal trials of journalists globally to defend the press when it is silenced. Our work, in partnership with leading law firms and universities around the world, has led to the release or acquittal of over 100 journalists and advocates, including recently journalists whose only crime was reporting on corruption or protests in Morocco, Thailand, Bangladesh, and Nigeria. But again, the justice gap remains so large. Legal information is usually published in a format that's inaccessible to journalists behind desks, let alone in a conflict zone. and journalists facing sham charges are often at a loss as to how to find a qualified lawyer or afford their fee. That's why we're really proud to be partnering with a leading press freedom organization, the Committee to Protect Journalists, to build a chatbot that provides legal information and connects journalists to qualified pro bono legal support. Like our tools that are helping women, this WhatsApp digital tool will provide legal information that's accessible through a conversational format in multiple languages and based on verified sources. And journalists will be able to use this tool to find a lawyer who's a match for their unique needs from a curated database of qualified pro bono counsel that we have created. We are really hopeful that this tool will be used worldwide by journalists, giving them the protection they need to continue their work. I can now show you a short video where you'll get to see these tools in action.
Around the world, there are far too many people who find justice out of reach. In this moment of rapid change and rising new technologies in AI, we see an opportunity to bring justice to millions. That is why we have launched a landmark partnership between the Clooney Foundation for Justice and the University of Oxford. Together, we have created the Oxford Institute of Technology and Justice. Our vision is to harness technology to enhance access to justice and develop international standards to protect our rights in the AI era. Today, we're working on 3 new digital tools for victims of human rights abuses, including women and journalists around the world. Our new work begins in Malawi, a country where millions of girls are married as children, experience physical or sexual violence, and never complete their education. For the last 2 years, we've been working with our partner, the Women Lawyers Association of Malawi, to offer free legal aid to women and girls in remote communities. But by using AI, we can do even more. With our partners on the ground and Microsoft's AI for Good lab, we are creating a first-of-its-kind digital tool for first responders, lawyers, nurses, police officers, teachers, and community leaders who meet with women and girls at their most vulnerable moments.
Mavuto ambiri amene azimayi ambiri umali unakumana nawo ndokuti sadziwa kolowera kakha kuti aphinjika kuti kodi lamulo likuti chani.
In a moment of crisis, frontline supporters can now simply type in a legal question and receive accurate information instantaneously. And the tool can also connect them to vetted lawyers who will take on a survivor's case for free. We are developing this hand in hand with those who will be using it, creating a transformative tool that can help women and girls.
Pamene chatbot mene ikabwera ndekuti uthenga ujozi khala kuti wayenda mwachangu ndekuti azimayi ndatsekana amene watitha kuwafikira azimayi ndatsekanawa ambiri komanso mu nthawi yotani mu nthawi yochepa.
Our second tool helps survivors of gender-based violence access one of the most important legal measures they need to protect themselves from their abuser: a protection order. At the moment, the road to filing a request for a protection order is long. Victims attend multiple sessions with their lawyers, who spend hours transcribing interviews and manually preparing documents. Now, a client can answer questions in simple language, and the tool will instantly generate a draft protection order request that a lawyer can finalize with the client, dramatically accelerating access to justice when it matters most.
A tool that would be used to produce an application for a protection order genuinely will lessen our work, but at the same time, it's something that would help women who are really in danger, grave danger, in their own homes and wherever they are.
In addition to our work in Malawi, we're developing a tool that can be used worldwide to help journalists access justice. It's never been more dangerous to report the news. That's why we've partnered with the Committee to Protect Journalists to develop an AI-powered legal assistance chatbot. Journalists around the world will be able to use this tool to access tailored legal information about their rights. They can also request to be connected to a lawyer for free, and the tool will generate matches based on the lawyer's location, language skills, and legal expertise. This will ensure that journalists have the protection to do their job, needed now more than ever. And all of this is just the beginning. By using this new technology, we have the opportunity to dramatically increase our reach. Together, we can wage justice for women and girls and for journalists around the world.
Thank you. It feels like a time when people need good news. So hopefully this has been a cause for optimism. I just wanted to, you've had enough from me, I just wanted to say a few thank yous before we move on to the next speaker. First, to our partners at Microsoft's AI for Good Lab, led by Juan Ferris. He was too busy to make the trip from the US, but thank you to Juan and the team for their tireless work and having to have calls with me and my team every Monday for many, many weeks to get this, to get us to this stage. Thank you to Microsoft's president, Brad Smith, for his inspiring and unwavering commitment to these causes. Thanks to the brilliant women at the Women Lawyers Association for their partnership, and to the Committee to Protect Journalists for their advocacy for press freedom at a particularly challenging time. Thanks to our pro bono counsel, some of whom I see in the audience, especially Quinn Emanuel's team. They were up at midnight many times to get to help us complete our research. Thank you to the best co-professor, co-author, co-founder, and friend anyone could wish for, Philippa Webb. Thanks to Harriet Lodo and Daisy from the Institute, and to my formidable team, Dave, Emma, Kate Manica, Sarah Tondi, Sabra Alice, Alicia Perry, Patricia Kat, and Nadine. This would not be possible without you all. Thank you.
You can see why we are thrilled here in the Blavatnik School to have Professor Philippa Webb, who's Professor of International Law in the school, leading this project with our Professor of Practice, Amal Clooney, and delighted to have you here with us launching it. I'd like to call now on a very special human being, Brad Smith, who I first heard speak in 2016, I think, late 2016, when he was beginning to forge ideas about why the world needed a Geneva Convention on technology. I might have butchered that, but that's what I recall, which in 2017 became a proposal. Some of you will know Brad from his book, Tools and Weapons, The Promise and the Peril of the Digital Age. But Brad has been one of the singular and sometimes unique voices in the tech sector who have kept saying, with our freedom to innovate comes a responsibility to do it safely and to do it for society. And Brad, for that, we are all very grateful to you. Anyway, we'd love to hear from you.
Well, thank you, Amal and Philippa, for your leadership. It's a real privilege to be up here with two leaders, one representing women, the other representing journalists. But really, more than anything, I think this afternoon and evening is an opportunity to think about the three words that define why we have come together: technology and justice. They are not three words that one typically hears in a single phrase. And as we think about those three words, I think it's worth taking stock of the moment in time in which we meet. In 86 days, the world will mark a milestone that, in truth, no one's really thinking about. The first quarter of the 21st century will come to an end on December 31st. The next day, the second quarter of the century will begin. It's worth thinking about the 25 years that all of us have lived through one way or another together. Because in truth, we've lived through a quarter century that has not only been reshaped, but in many ways redefined by technology, in many ways that are good. Digital technology has improved productivity, it has advanced scientific discovery, it has enabled breakthroughs in cancer research. It has connected individuals and families. It has enabled us to take for granted looking at a phone or a laptop and seeing someone speak by video in a way that felt like science fiction when the century began. But as our title suggested, technology is always a two-sided coin. It is always a tool and a weapon. And so when we look back at the past 25 years, I don't think we can help but also reflect equally on all of the new challenges that have been unleashed. The people that are using technology to exploit children or girls in a country like Malawi or others as well. People who are using technology to defraud the elderly, using ransomware to freeze the computers of schools and hospitals and companies, and freeze their, and even put the lives of patients at risk until criminals are paid. We can't help but reflect on how technology is being used now as an instrument of war, whether it's a hybrid war or a kinetic war, whether it's in Ukraine or Gaza or elsewhere around the world. Technology and justice are not topics we think about together, but I think when we do and we look back and then we look forward, if nothing else, we should resolve that we will do better. And when you think about that, I think it also causes one to reflect on how. What can we learn? And I often think that despite living in an industry where everyone is always looking forward, so often the best lessons come from the past. In the 1990s, there was an economic theory that was born that suggested that about every 80 years, humanity repeats an economic calamity or panic. In fact, the Great Recession began in 2009, 79 years after the onset of the Great Depression, which followed by almost precisely 80 years the first global financial panic. And you can go back and trace this all the way back to the South Sea bubble and the price of tulips in Holland. And the academics offered what I think is a common sense theory. It turns out that about 80 years or so is the time it takes for almost everyone with a living memory of what went wrong to pass from the scene. And so humanity tends to forget, but people need to remember the mistakes of the past. But I think as we come together, I think it's also true not just of humanity's mistakes, but the world's great triumphs and successes as well. Because we come together on the year that marks the 80th anniversary of the most calamitous war in the history of the world, but also the launch of the United Nations. It was 5 years that saw in 1948 the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and then in 1949, the Geneva Conventions, written and embraced by the entire world to protect civilians, even in times of combat. I think what this institute has the opportunity to do is to ensure that what humanity tends to forget, people will remember. And not just remember, but build upon. Because as we think about technology and justice and the work of this institute and the Clooney Foundation for Justice, it's not just the words technology and justice that matter. It's the word and. It is the power of academic theory and practice. The power of not just analysis, but action. The ability to bring together not just people from the public sector, but to combine them in conversation with people from the tech sector and the private sector, the business community and the nonprofit sector, to talk about and identify what we can do together. And to show the world, not just with the power of our ideas, but even more so, I believe, with the power of the steps we are taking. I am so excited about the work that we at Microsoft have just had the privilege of contributing to through our AI for Good Lab and other steps. And I think the example that Amal shared of creating an app that can speak to someone in a language that, I will admit, I did not know existed just some months ago, to talk to a person in their language using words they understand about the rights they have that they may not even have known about. That is truly a mission that uses technology to serve justice. So I hope, especially for the students who are here today, who I believe will be the leaders around the world in the future, that this becomes a place that brings people together to solve the problems that we have today, but to build a foundation that will make the second quarter of this century better than the first. And as Amal basically asked, every day, we all have the opportunity to get up and ask, are we optimistic today or are we pessimistic today? My answer is simple. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is whether we're determined, whether we're resilient, whether we're creative, whether we'll use things like this to make a difference and build a better future. If you listen to the folks here today, that is the opportunity we have. We can seize the moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brad. And now we have the great honor of hearing from Jodie Ginsberg, who is CEO of the Committee to Protect Journalists. Jodie was a former UK bureau chief for Reuters and then CEO of Internet News. But she's now someone who's dedicated her extraordinary capabilities to protecting journalists all over the world who are finding and bringing us news. Thank you, Jodie, and thank you for being with us. We're looking forward to hearing from you.
Come to Oxford, Amal said. You can be on a panel. We're going to talk about the legal chatbot. She didn't mention who else was going to be on the panel and just how large and who was going to be in the audience, including a Nobel Prize laureate and a quite famous actor, which I think shows you the importance, for those of you who want to be journalists, of asking questions. So I want to thank the Oxford Institute of Technology and Justice, and especially Amal and Philippa, for inviting the Committee to Protect Journalists to partner on this important opportunity, which could not come at a more critical time. As you heard, press freedom is not just under attack, it is in extreme and historic peril. Last year was the deadliest ever for journalists in CPJ's more than 40-year history, with more than 120 journalists and media workers killed worldwide. Journalists are being forced into exile in unprecedented numbers. Online harassment of reporters, especially women and those from marginalized communities, continues to spike and frequently morphs into harassment offline. And journalists, as you heard, are being jailed at a record rate. At least 375 journalists were in jail on December 1st last year. That is 3 times the number of a decade earlier, and nearly a third higher than the level just 5 years ago. Journalists are currently in jail in more than 40 countries, from China to Russia, from Israel to Eritrea, from Hong Kong to Guatemala and the Philippines. They are jailed in authoritarian regimes and supposed democracies. They are being targeted directly for their work, but more and more they are being indirectly targeted, using the law, through laws related to national security, for financial crimes, for alleged corporate governance failings, or through the use of spurious and vexatious lawsuits. Such abuse of the law is intended not just to silence an individual journalist or even their organization, but to put the entire media system on notice. Stop reporting, or you will be next. The impact on democratic norms and fundamental freedoms as a result of such lawfare is marked. Restrictions on freedom of expression are the leading indicator of democratic decline worldwide, and challenging these restrictions is crucial if we are to reverse the current rapid downward trajectory in global democracy. Since 2022, CPJ's budget, the budget of the organisation I lead, for financial assistance grants for journalists at risk has doubled in an effort to meet the needs of the growing numbers of journalists in peril. We have added a raft of new staff members to our emergency response team to be able to respond more quickly and in more languages. But continuing to just add people, even to add money, is not sustainable for any organisation. Tackling the marked increase in volumes of attacks on the press also requires radical new approaches, allowing those who support journalists, like my organisation, to dramatically scale up our assistance while ensuring cases are vetted appropriately and, importantly, securely. You've already heard from Amal a little bit about the legal chatbot. Well, it will build on the learnings of CPJ's journalist safety chatbot, which we launched in 2023 to help us scale up the basic provision of safety advice to journalists at risk. Our initial vision for the original safety chatbot was one that would allow journalists on the ground in Ukraine to gain immediate access to CPJ safety resources using just their cell phones. Typically, in these kinds of environments, internet access and bandwidth can be sporadic, and journalists, of course, in a war zone are often on the move and don't have the time to search for accurate information, which is often hard to pass. We wanted the chatbot to help journalists easily locate relevant safety resources whenever they needed them most, directly through their phones. During its pilot phase, the chatbot helped journalists find physical, digital, psychosocial, and legal safety information in both English and Ukrainian that was tailored to journalists reporting from a conflict zone. We have since expanded the chatbot to encompass a wider range of CPJ safety resources to meet the needs of journalists worldwide. That means that a full suite of safety materials for journalists on all matter assignments are now available in the palm of their hand. To date, there have been over 500 users and 10,000 total messages sent through the chatbot. By partnering with the Clooney Foundation for Justice, we are looking to fill two clear gaps for journalists: easy to access legal information and quick legal referrals. We will be making legal information accessible in a conversational format, meaning journalists will not have to sort through long documents or large green tomes, but can instead access relevant, accurate information quickly in an emergency situation. Currently, accessing legal referrals, especially in a fast-moving situation, is complex and often requires multiple calls to link journalists with a relevant lawyer, and particularly one, and this is very much key in much of the work that we do, particularly one that has international experience who will help guide them through the case in a way that will help ensure it can be heard by relevant regional and international bodies if local legal remedies fail. The legal chatbot will significantly reduce the time taken to connect journalists with lawyers and will expand the network of lawyers available to do this work. As with the original chatbot, we hope to leverage technology so that journalists can swiftly access the information they need to find the support that is most relevant for them, while maintaining the ability to access in-person guidance at every stage of the process. The legal chatbot allows us to scale this work dramatically so that more journalists can be connected with more lawyers quickly at a time when such support is so critically needed. We're excited about the potential this initiative offers to draw on the skills not just of CPJ or the Clooney Foundation, but the expertise of so many partners and colleagues in this sector. It truly does take a village. The opportunities for innovation, for collaboration, and for commitment it presents are all vital if we are to meet this critical moment for press freedom. Thank you.
So thank you from all of us, Jodie, not just for your words, but also for your work. It's a huge pleasure now to invite Ruth Mchizi. Am I butchering your name, Ruth? Yes, I am. Ruth is going to teach us how to say her names are important. So I hope the first thing you'll do is teach us how to say your name properly, Ruth. Ruth is from the Women Lawyers Association of Malawi. She's a fully trained teacher who's been teaching private law at the University of Malawi. But in terms of tonight, she's leading the project about which we heard in Malawi. We're so pleased to have you with us here, Ruth. Please do teach us how to say your name.
So it's Mchizi. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Let me start by sharing briefly why and how I became a lawyer. My journey has been of second chances. I got pregnant very young and got married very young at 17. So I'm part of the statistics. I married when I had very little education. I started all over, going back to secondary school while I was married, as a wife and as a mother, working throughout school to support my family. Today, I am a proud lawyer, and I have vowed to use the law to help women and girls live safely, with dignity and real choices. Now pause with me and imagine if I had not found my way back to school. Imagine how vulnerable I would have been to violence, physical, emotional, physical, as well as financial. This is the daily reality for far too many Malawian women and girls. And it is precisely why, and many female lawyers in Malawi volunteer at the Women Lawyers Association, WILA. For more than 2 decades, WILA has pioneered access to justice by providing legal support to women and girls. WILA was founded by 3 pioneering female lawyers who saw clearly what others ignored: the systematic discrimination that women and children in Malawi faced, both in law and in their daily lives. For far too long, access to justice was reserved for those with means, and women were excluded. They carried the burdens of patriarchy, restrictive societal expectations, poverty, often alone. For many years, WILA has operated on volunteer basis, which limited how many women we could reach. That changed in 2023 when we partnered with the Clooney Foundation for Justice. This partnership was a turning point for WILA. With its support, we have full-time project lawyers dedicated to litigation, legal clinics, and training first responders. These are the people who shoulder the enormous responsibility and being the first contact for survivors. The impact has been so significant. Since the project began, we have sensitized more than 9,000 women and children on their rights. We have registered, litigated, and provided legal advice in over 225 cases arising from these clinics, and more than 400 additional cases from walk-in clients and our toll-free line. Alongside our Lilongwe office, which is in the central region of Malawi, we have also opened another office in Blantyre, which is the southern region of Malawi. Despite this growth in capacity and impact, the need remains overwhelming. Even with the dedication of our volunteer membership, the demand far exceeds our capacity. This is why WILA is both excited and deeply grateful for our partnership with Oxford Institute for Technology and Justice, as well as Microsoft. Now let's talk about this project under the institute we are launching today. Imagine what the right technology can do inside Wheeler. First responders in the rural clinic can open a simple WhatsApp tool that provides them with instant information about how to support women and girls and how they can easily refer them to Wheeler to receive legal advice and support. The tool will also allow us to map the demand in real time, deploying clinics where need spikes, and tracking outcomes so we learn faster and reach further. The affidavit tool is another innovation set to transform our work. Traditionally, affidavits are the most time-consuming task for our secretariat, requiring long hours of careful drafting. By automating this process, the tool will generate accurate, legally sound affidavits quickly, reducing errors, standardizing formats, and ensuring survivors receive timely legal assistance. Picture a survivor not repeating her story 3 times, but once, accurately, respectfully, and securely. This efficiency will free our lawyers to focus on litigation and client engagement while keeping the process survivor-centered and sensitive. Why does this matter? Because a protection order can be a thin line between safety and sustained harm. Too often, distance and delay stand in that line for Malawian women and children. What makes this partnership even more powerful is how these tools are being developed. We have engaged survivors, first responders, female judges, and legal experts to ensure that the tools are accurate, sensitive, and accessible. We are building tools that respect local context, standardize best practice, and travel to the woman who needs it. On behalf of the Wheeler Executive Director, Ms. Koda Raponzo, and the entire Wheeler membership, I extend our profound gratitude to Amal, Philippa, and the entire team of Microsoft and CFJ for not only building these tools, but for listening, not only to us, but to the survivors and to the first responders. This project is more than an innovation, it is transformation. Together, we are expanding the reach of justice, ensuring that no woman and girl in Malawi is left behind. Thank you.
So, Ruth Mchizi, thank you. Thank you so much again, not just for your words, but for the incredible work that you're doing. To bring together tonight's remarks, there is the gentleman on my left who's holding a folder which says, His Majesty's Attorney General. And I'm pretty sure when I first arrived from New Zealand to this country, I would have thought that meant he was the King's personal lawyer. Yeah. But let me immediately correct that. Lord Hermer KC is the Attorney General for the United Kingdom. And he was appointed to this role after a long career at the bar, bringing some of Britain's most difficult cases, the Shamima Begum case, the War on Terror cases, the Grenfell Tower victims, some pretty tireless support of the people who most need it. Thank you, Richard, and we're looking forward to hearing from you this evening. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Look, I've been given a completely impossible task for a lawyer turned politician, which is to keep my remarks to 5 minutes. But look, it's a huge pleasure to be here at the launch of this truly wonderful new institute. But I want to start, if I may, with an acknowledgement. And I speak as someone who has spent my life practicing at what I call the comfortable end of human rights, spending my time in beautiful wood-panelled courtrooms arguing interesting esoteric points of law. But sitting here this evening, I'm at once both kind of humbled and inspired, listening to you, Ruth, and listening about the work of your association, which is what human rights is all about. And also you, Jodie, listening to the work of the committee and the time in our history in which journalists are facing the threats that they face, when truth has never been a more important commodity. Allow me to say on behalf of His Majesty's government how to welcome the Institute, and on behalf of the UK, just to kind of slightly boast that we're so glad that so much of the important work of the Institute is going to be centred here in the United Kingdom. Because for an institute that is seeking to harness both the benefits of technology and science for the benefit of those most vulnerable, you've come to the right place. It marries two great national traditions, the advancement of science and the development of international law and justice. Because nearly 400 years ago, about 2 hours north of here, an apple fell from a tree, and it inspired bedrock theories of modern physics. In the last century, about an hour up the road at Bletchley Park, brilliant women utilised mathematics to crack the Enigma code. In Cambridge, the great Alan Turing laid the framework for the development of AI, and here in Oxford, Sir Tim Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web. And Brad, may I say, if you get fed up of the Seattle weather, Microsoft can headquarters here anytime it likes. But so too in international law, this country has played a pivotal role in developing its reach for the benefit of our fellow inhabitants of this planet. The Enlightenment philosophers and those who followed them gave voice to the human rights idea. Thomas Paine, John Locke, just up the road, Isaiah Berlin. It was British lawyers who made a huge contribution to giving practical life to those ideas, not least people like Hirsch Lauderpacht, our prosecution teams at Nuremberg, our legal diplomats, so central to drafting the great international instruments of our time, from the United Nations Charter to, and let me say it loud and clear, the great European Convention of Human Rights. And it was 80 years ago this year that the first ever meeting of the United Nations General Assembly took place in London. And so it's reflecting on this great heritage of the United Kingdom contribution to international human rights law that makes it such a pleasure to be sharing a platform with all the speakers, but two of whom are not only great friends, but wonderful exemplars of that tradition, Professors Clooney and Webb, each not only brilliant British lawyers, but utterly committed to the idea that human rights are universal and that they mean nothing if isolated in the abstract, but have to be utilised for the practical benefit of the most vulnerable. Allow me to make two observations. Firstly, it is obvious, it is clear that AI holds enormous promise for access to justice to millions of people who do not currently enjoy it. There are no real rights without remedies. But across the world, there are countless millions for whom justice is currently illusory, including those who are victims of violations of fundamental human rights. And as the work of the Clooney Foundation highlights, one of the most pressing human rights issues are women's rights, the right to be free from sexual violence, the right to be free from sexual harassment, the right to equality in the workplace, and justice and accountability when those rights are violated. And the importance of using law to give voice to victims was driven home to me in a case that Amal and I litigated together a few years ago. It was a claim brought by women working on a farm in rural Malawi, one of the most beautiful, but one of the poorest countries on the planet. Women on that farm had suffered from systemic sexual violence, harassment, and were placed systemically in the lowest positions in employment. Now, this is the type of experience of women not only across Malawi, but across so many parts of the world. Now, in that particular case, we were able to obtain a fantastic outcome for our clients. Compensation, the creation of a women's health centre, and the introduction of female empowerment programs in the workplace. All wonderful things, but only helping a tiny fraction of victims. Across the planet, as we sit here or stand here, there will be hundreds of thousands, millions of women facing similar plights with no means of legal protection. So the use of AI and technology offers an unprecedented opportunity to meaningfully expand justice to women like those Amal and I represented. It means that access to justice may no longer be the preserve of those who can either afford to find lawyers or find lawyers who can afford to represent them for nothing. The potential for empowerment is unlimited. And that's what makes the creation of this institute so inspiring and so exciting. It's evidence-based. It applies intellectual rigor. It seeks to harness new technologies in a creative way. And it is all in the service of the most vulnerable. To coin a phrase that someone mentioned, Amal has been described in these terms. How radical, how noble. My second point is just as AI holds out enormous potential for positive transformation, so too does it present huge risk to societies. And it's not in any sense antediluvian to highlight these risks. This country is absolutely determined to put itself at the vanguard of the development of AI, but to do so with our eyes wide open. Now, I'm old enough to remember the excitement around the emergence of the web, the fervently held belief that it heralded a new age of citizenship, of citizen democracy and participation, that it would raise up the quality of the public discourse. Now, some of that turned out to be correct. But few would argue that its development has been entirely for the good, as societies struggle, for example, to cope with social media riven by hatred, division, and falsity. There are numerous challenges that AI poses, the types of existential risks to humanity that raised by people like Geoffrey Hinton and others, the deadly way it could be used in warfare, the risk of huge unsettlements across the globe and in labour markets as machines supplant traditional jobs and vocations. And whilst the global powers race ahead with AI, we must take great care not to undermine public trust. If systems are opaque and unaccountable, faith in justice will erode further. If we build courts on black boxes models and allow decisions to be governed by proprietary algorithms beyond scrutiny, we risk transforming justice into something alien, inscrutable, remote, and unchallengeable. And at this juncture, the United Kingdom is determined to do more than just follow. We aim to lead, not only in technological innovation, but in establishing the moral and legal architecture that governs AI, transparency, accountability, respect for data dignity, and universal values that transcend borders. But as with international justice and the protection of fundamental human rights, this is a challenge that can be met by international cooperation and the further development of international law. But stepping back, let me congratulate the Blavatnik School, Professor Woods. Let me congratulate my dear friends for setting up this institute. It is a wonderful example of how when good people come together, the marriage of AI and law offers huge promise for the protection and promotion of human rights. Let us all be noble. Let us all be radical. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lord Hermer, for being here with us and for bringing the thoughts together and then expanding them right out for us. Now, my instructions say that I must now moderate a Q&A with the audience in the remaining, 6 minutes that we have. But here in the Blavatnik School of Government, there are some professors who cold call people, which means they call them out by name and make them speak. There are others who warm call people, which means you call on someone to speak, but if they don't feel like it, they can point to somebody else. So I'm going to warm call just 2 members of our audience who have already been pointed at. And the first is Maria. Maria, the client, the Nobel Prize winner, the brave journalist from whom everybody has heard. I think the audience would be disappointed if they didn't hear a word from you. So Maria, a comment from you.
I mean, first of all, I have to tell you how much of a geek Amal is. She's truly a geek, almost as geeky as the AI chatbot. So it's wonderful to listen to this and to look at what you've accomplished in time for the launch. And my first question immediately was, can we just exchange databases and then change the chatbot to other countries? Because that would scale it globally. It's fantastic for Malawi. Of course, I thought of Southeast Asia immediately. But having said that, also thank you for taking care of the journalists, because there are so many, many more like me, and I'm very, very lucky to have lawyers who have helped kept my freedom. And finally, thank you for building it, right? How cool is that? And it's rare for me to be in this position because normally I hit the excesses of tech. So it is incredibly wonderful to see tech for good. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you so much. And now I think I need to warm call, not compulsory, the co-founder of the Clooney Foundation. Have you ever spoken in public before?
No, listen, I don't really have a question. This is well above my pay grade. Hi, guys. I'm Brad Pitt. Hi. I really don't have a question. As I watch this, what I would say is, for someone who is a son of a journalist, and my mother-in-law is also a journalist, and my wife, who has been this incredible force for good, and Pip, and all of you guys, what you're doing is such an extraordinary step that some of us are very confused by when we talk about technology, and excited by it. If you're 64 years old, you know I'm a Luddite when it comes to all of this. But I am thrilled with the idea of the work that all of you have been doing at the Committee to Protect Journalists. The idea that it can be scaled is everything, because what we keep looking at, and I think, Maria, you agree with this, is that I grew up in the United States as a son of a newsman, and it's been a very trying time for my country and how we have decided to deal with facts and truth and journalism. And so my hope is, in scaling it, you're also able to scale it into some democracies along the way. That's my hope. But I have, the only questions I would ask is, when does this all start, and how quickly can it get to Manila and around the world? That's it.
Thank you both so much. Did you want to answer the question, when does it all start? If I can say that that Professors Clooney and Webb are the most gracefully impatient people I've ever had to deal with.
Well, can I say thanks to Nairi, because she's also gracefully impatient in that, and everyone who's on the stage has brought us here, because, you know, when we came up with the proposal, we sent it to Brad, and we had come up with every detail on the legal side, and then he was like, well, how much does this institute cost? And we were like, oh, we don't know how much it costs. And then we came up with a number, and he was like, well, that's woefully inadequate. This is what Microsoft is going to bring to the table. And we're so grateful that you are so committed to supporting initiatives like these, and Nairi, you as well. And to Richard, who introduced me to amazing women lawyers in Malawi, which was the genesis of our Waging Justice for Women's program, actually, at the foundation. But if the question was, when does it start? It starts now, and the ambition and scale that we hope to achieve could be detrimental to our personal life. So we're going to have to find a balance along the way.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say, to answer both of your questions, you know, what does it take to bring it to another language with another body of law? It's basically two things. The first is you have to train a large language model to speak a new language. And one of the real challenges with that in the world is that a very high percentage of the digital content is in English, and you get into a large number of languages that actually have a very small amount of content online. But one of the things we did here, and one of the things you're seeing others across the industry and foundations pursue, is training LLMs to speak new languages. And I'm optimistic because I think we're finding that with a relatively small amount of content, including content that just can be read aloud, you start to create the capability to enable an LLM to learn and speak a new language. Then you need to have the body of law in that country so that it can give informed legal advice. Now, on a global basis, this is where, as you're focused, you know, having an AI that can be trained on that rather heavy book is a huge advance. But I also think that, you know, once it can learn a new language, it can now then ingest, you know, the laws of that country. So I'm actually quite optimistic that there is a scaling opportunity in, I'll just say, our collective future.
Heavy but riveting book. Philippa.
So one of the head of research and projects, Lodovica, has been doing research on legal design, which is a really innovative area that brings together psychology, law, graphic design. And as part of her research, and I was her supervisor, she said, did you know that lawyers are the most risk-averse profession? They're the slowest to change and the most traditional. And I said, yes, that tracks. But what we found in this collaboration and being in this school is, first, we are finding the dynamic lawyers who make change and don't take no for an answer. We are also breaking down silos, because it's not just lawyers that are important here. It's technologists, it's business, it's governments, it's policymakers, and it's many other skill sets that we're bringing together. So, as Amal says, it starts today, and we hope you'll join us.
So just before I ask you one last time to thank our panelists this evening, I'd like to say to the students of the Blavatnik School who are in the hall this evening, yeah, stand up, MPP students. There they are. Yay. I just want to say that I know that Amal and Philippa and all of their supporters are looking forward to having you working with them all through this year. And you'll get lots of opportunities to engage, and we're thrilled that you could be with us this evening. But before we close, I'd just like to pay a special thank you to Richard Hermer, Attorney General of the United Kingdom, Brad Smith, President of Microsoft, Philippa Webb, Professor of International Law, co-founder of this initiative, Amal Clooney, Visiting Professor of International Law, co-founder of this initiative, Ruth Mchizi, from the Women Lawyers Association in Malawi, and Jodie Ginsberg from the Committee to Protect Journalism, a huge thank you from all of us.